Well, hello everybody. So good to be back. I was on the road for a few days, but I'm back, and today I'm really, really excited. I have a dear friend of mine who has accepted to come on my channel and help me connect some of the dots on what's happening in the Middle East with the Hamas-Israel war. Bill Koenig, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Olivier. What a treat.
And really, Bill, you and I have known each other we're trying to figure it out before the show, 15 plus years, and you have been a blessing to me. You've had your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world, but specifically in the Middle East for quite a while now. I mean, your website, if people want to connect with you, let's start with that. I don't want to forget. How do people connect with you?
Yeah, our website address is watch.org, watch.org. And we've been on the internet since 96, post news 365 days out of the year. On world news, it's biblically relevant.
Yes, and you have a lot of good information. You have a couple of books as well that you have published. Tell our audience real quick about those books.
I published 2 books on Israel and 1 on Obama. My active book, Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel, is in its 3rd revision, 564 pages of the consequences to the United States and those leaders that attempt to divide the covenant land of Israel. And also I wrote a book, Revealed Obama's Legacy. After, I was at the White House as a correspondent for 20 years, 2 Bush terms, 2 Obama terms, Trump terms. So I wrote a very revealing book of what I saw during Obama's 8 years, and a lot of what he did in the Middle East with the Iran nuclear deal and his negotiations with Israel have had a dramatic impact and, helped birth ISIS, help empower Iran, and pretty much led us to where we are today. So what I like to add, Olivier, is what's interesting is our American presidents have had a significant role in the prophetic significance and destiny of the state of Israel, from Harry, even before Harry Truman, all to the present. And I also say often, as Trump was the best friend Israel ever had, he did more, along with his help of his ambassador David Friedman, for Israel than all presidents combined, and especially moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And then Revealed Obama's Legacy is very insightful on a lot of the issues we're facing in Israel, the Middle East, with Russia, and also here domestically, here in the United States.
Yeah, well, thank you for telling us about the books. I remember the first time I got my hands on the book Eye to Eye, my first reaction, I didn't know you very well at the time. My first reaction was going like, really? Is he going to link all those things? And I was a little skeptic. I don't know. And I started looking at it, I'm going, wow. And you can't deny it. You really can't.
No, absolutely.
I don't overreact. I'm very conservative. You just can't deny it.
So. Absolutely. And there was people like yourself, Chuck Missler and others, Hawking and others, that when they first saw the book, they go, I don't know. But then I said, just watch when we have a record-setting catastrophe in America, hurricanes, tornado outbreaks, 9/11, and the Northridge earthquake in 94 in California. Watch what we're doing with the state of Israel at the moment, same day, within 24 hours of us applying pressure on Israel to create an Arab state in Judea and Samaria.
Yeah. It's, and thank you for calling it Judea and Samaria, not the West Bank.
Absolutely.
Those little details. This is why we're friends.
That's biblical details, Olivier. Exactly.
Right.
That are very important today.
And a lot of people who are friends of Israel even call it the West Bank. They don't pay attention to those details. But so let's jump into it. I can't believe we are where we are, Bill. I've been monitoring and speaking and writing on anti-Semitism since 2000, and it's pretty much been my the bulk of what I do in my ministry. And in the last couple of years or even few months, it's been going so fast, and I'm just like, I'm amazed at how world events are all coming together. And obviously, there's a lot of prophetic significance right now at what's happening. We have a lot of questions. People ask a lot of questions about, the different events that are still yet to come in the Bible. But before we even get into that, the first thing that I wanted to ask you, actually, there's a question that's been on my mind, and I don't know anybody has a real good answer, is when do we officially declare or accept or that we are in World War III? What constitutes an official declaration of World War III or of a world war? Do we even know that, or is it usually declared? It happens and then it's designed as such after the fact?
Yeah, I don't. To be quite honest, I don't think we're there at this point. But if we had Russia firing away, possibly even at the United States, if we had China making a move on Taiwan, the United States and the international community has said that they will defend Taiwan. If missiles start flying out of Israel, Iran, and that level of tension increases, and the war in the Ukraine, possibly in Europe, increases. Yeah, you could say that is a defined war. When you look at Matthew 24, or the Olivet Discourse, he talks about wars and rumors of wars, nation against nations, kingdom against kingdoms. What's interesting, for the lack of a better word right now, Olivier, that's so significant is the major players have an opinion on what's taking place in Israel. We've got Russia, Putin, and Lavrov that said the only reason there isn't peace is because they and the international community has not been involved with the peace process, instead of the United States, blaming the U.S. for the reason there hasn't been peace. Right. You have Putin was just in China with the President Xi to discuss things, events, the time that we're living in. Also, when Biden went on national TV last week and really came against Putin in very strong terms, he asked for $105 billion, $60 billion for the Ukraine, which will further infuriate Putin. At the same time, I mean, that's a very controversial war. I mean, Ukraine's one of the four most corrupt countries in the world. We've got Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and Ukraine. And the United States has given a tremendous amount of money to three of those fours. So I think that's very significant. Also, $5 billion of that is supposed to help Taiwan and the region around Taiwan. So that is something that irritates China anytime the international community speaks of defending Taiwan against China. And then moving to aircraft carrier groups, the Gerald Ford and Eisenhower into the Mediterranean. China moved 6 warships into the region too. And then Iran foreign minister today at the UN General Assembly says, if the United States is going to help increase, I'm paraphrasing, but to increase the intensity in the possible conflict, then there's going to be a price that the United States pays as well. So you've got major final day players, and not to forget Erdogan says he supports Hamas. It's not a terror group. And, in the past, he's been a supporter of Hamas. And all of a sudden, he is getting involved, even canceled negotiations and talks about joint oil exploration deals with Israel. So you got the major players in place.
Libya also got involved yesterday, I think. Libya, I read an article that they were getting, they were getting vocal about, their position. And
we're going to hear more of that, Olivier, but I think the key here, when you look at the Gog Magog figures, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, Libya, former Soviet Union countries in the Caucasian Mountains, that's significant. And then China with the Bible speaks of a 200 million man army in the final day. There's only one country in the world that can do that.
Let's see if we agree on this. Do you see Gog and Magog before or after the rapture?
It's a good debate. With some of our scholarly friends, a lot of them think before the Daniel 9:27 covenant or the rapture of the church. And there's some others. I think Dr. Wolverd, possibly Hal Lindsey, and Tim LaHaye, I think inside the 7. I don't remember the details, but I think Mark Hitchcock and Tommy Ice and Randall, I think, is before the 7-year covenant, possibly before the rapture. But I think what's important here is an event that we're looking at right now is Jeremiah 49, 34 through 39. Modern day Elam, that is Iran, southern Iran. That's where the nuclear weapons, good chance that that could be the first hit. Israel's going to have to do something. I don't know if the United States join them, but nuclear weapons are almost achieved. The nuclear bomb is almost achieved. If it's not, it's soon. So the point here, that could very likely be the trigger, and that could devastate Iran. The gospel will spread throughout. You can look at 35, 38, 34 through 38, but specifically 38. So I think that's very positive from the gospel standpoint. But then you look also Isaiah 17:1, the time when Damascus will no longer exist as a city. Those two could be possibly connected. And then obviously the Magog war, I think that's later. Some people think it's sooner, but I think that that will be after Israel lives in a more peaceful environment.
That's where I'm that's where I was going to go there. When you look at the passage about Gog and Magog, the one thing that really catches my attention is that Israel is caught in this when they're at peace, and I think that there's a good argument for saying that they will be at peace, albeit a false peace. We know that, but they will in temporary peace, we should say, for 3.5 years during the tribulation. So I'm thinking the war of Gog and Magog probably will take place in the first half of the tribulation. But again, regardless of our eschatological position, Bill, we have to agree that the stage is being set faster than we can think.
Absolutely, Olivier. And I think when you look at the situation, if Iran's dealt with, I mean, there would be no Hamas likely without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without an Iran funding and supporting that. The Middle East would be much more peaceful. The Sunni Arab countries that flocked to Israel when Obama cut the Iran nuclear deal, they go, we need someone in the United States. We can't trust Obama. The allies couldn't trust him, and the enemies didn't fear Obama. And what we have in the White House right now is Obama 2.0. So the point here is the Sunni Arab countries are also fearful of a nuclear Iran, especially the Saudis. Some people say Israel's the first to be hit and Saudis second. Well, some people think the Saudis would be the first because of that bad blood between Shia Islam, 20% of Islam, and 80% of Islam, which is Sunni Islam, which is led by the Saudis. So the irony is, because of the Iran nuclear deal, it created a situation where the relationships that Israel had with their Arab countries was much better because they looked to them with help, with intel. They realized that Israel just wants to be left in peace and security, be a productive nation. So it kind of changed the chessboard a bit. But I think, when you look at Jeremiah, just to throw this out, Olivier, if you look at Jeremiah 49, if Iran gets smacked and their nukes get taken out and their ability to deal with Hamas and Hezbollah, things could, the Bible speaks of the unwalled safe cities that could conceptually happen. In some ways, Israel has had safety and has had some peace and security. But I think, once again, if Iran's dealt with forcefully, then it could change the dynamics of the Middle East for a while.
Do you think Israel? Do you think Israel is going to strike Iran soon or at all?
They have, that's a good question. I think what's interesting, in the summer of 2016, two of our former ambassadors, Jeffords and Crocker, to Syria and Iraq, said that they thought that Israel was real close to being at the red line of making a move on the Russian and Iranian and Syrian troops that were moving toward Israel's northern border. And that was very close, but then they backed off and moved. So in other words, Israel had a red line in that situation. I don't know what Israel's red line is right now, but throughout history, Olivier, the strength of Israel is to be preemptive, to hit before they get hurt. 6-Day War is a great example. But I think that there is a red line. Israel needs to be careful. We had a briefing in 2019 by the IDF spokesperson, who now you've seen on TV quite a bit, Jonathan, the retired spokesperson. And he said that, we understand what Hezbollah has. They have 150,000 rockets. And at that time, they didn't have the 15,000 missiles deployed. But we know it. We know the market. And even a former general told a friend of mine, he said, the next war we have with Hezbollah and in southern Lebanon, Syria, there'll be areas uninhabitable for 10 years. So with all that said, they have, obviously, Iran's part of the equation. I don't know if we're there yet. Iran is strategic, very patient, and they got a plan. And when you look at it, Olivier, when you look at all the nuclear scientists have been taken out, Soleimani was taken out. I mean, he was such a powerful individual. When you look at all the rocket shipments that have been taken out in Syria and Lebanon, and Iran has not made the move to this point. They're deploying missiles in Yemen. They're deploying missiles in Iraq, and they're deploying missiles in Lebanon. So they need to do something.
Iran has not made the move, but they've made move by proxy. What's happening in Hamas, in Gaza?
Absolutely,
Hamas, it is a move. It is
absolutely
behind the whole thing. You know, I was talking to one of my contacts in Jerusalem. Was it the day before yesterday? We were having a conversation, and he said that 2/3 of the people that have been recalled in Israel, that have been recalled and deployed, 2/3 are actually right now at the northern border. People think that all the reservists are going to Gaza to start, to get in and eradicate Hamas, which is going to happen. But I don't think Americans realize that it's only a smaller portion of the reservists, because there's a lot more at stake in the north with Hezbollah. What do you think?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. When you there's been some great parallels and comparisons of the Hamas and the size of their military and how much money they get every year versus Hezbollah, which has 150,000 plus troops conceptually, and they get almost $1 billion or maybe more a year from Iran. So there's really no comparison. Right. Another concern, obviously, the concern about Hezbollah is those 150,000 rockets and the 15,000 missiles. But the IDF spokesperson in 2019 says we have it layered. We know where they are. They're in second and third stories of houses. We know it. But if it comes to the future of Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa, we have no other choice but to make, again, making those areas uninhabitable for 10 years. They have to. And you and I know, Olivier, they've got to have a plan. They have to have a plan. They have a plan with Hezbollah. They got a plan with Iran. And there is a red line. We don't know where it is. And the international component is another factor. I mean, here's the United States. The purpose of moving the USS Ford, the USS Eisenhower, was there to keep Iran at bay and keep them and Hezbollah out of the conflict. That was the purpose.
You keep talking, Bill. You keep talking about a red line, and I agree with you in principle. But let's look at Gaza for a second. Wasn't the red line crossed on October 7th? And
without a doubt,
what's taking so long for Israel to go back into Gaza? Do you think they're being pulled back by the U.S.? I mean, there's the hostages, of course, but why have they not gone? I mean, I heard that last night or yesterday or like a few hours ago they went in for a brief moment and came out. What's going on there? Why are they not in yet?
A couple of reasons. One, the hope of the hostages will be released. That's kind of an international hope. Second thing, UN General Assembly just voted overwhelming to call on Israel to not go into Gaza, to not go there. The other thing is the United States was putting pressure on Netanyahu not to go in. The IDF was ready. They were concerned about lost time, but the United States says, and then what we saw yesterday, the U.S. said we need to send more weapons. We need to send more Iron Domes. We need to put more missile defense systems to protect our troops in Syria and Iraq. So that was kind of the reason / excuse of the last 24 hours is Israel let us get what we need in place, because what we've seen, some missiles thrown out of Yemen that the U.S. took down. We've seen drones. We have injured troops in Syria and Iraq. So we're going to have to increase our defense system a bit. So the bottom line is no one, well, I shouldn't say no one, but most international leaders, if not all, almost all of them, except for maybe the U.S., which is kind of still favoring it, but there's a lot of pressure not to at this moment, not to go in. So, Israel's getting hammered in the international press. Of course, they always do. We got a majority of the media throughout the world, and you certainly are familiar with it in Europe, that are just, and this is my concern. They're because of what Hamas did for 3 or 4 days, everybody's going to be horrified, and then right after that, we're going to see buildings taken down and people killed in Gaza, and that's going to be on the front page of every newspaper every day that the bombing continues, which will put more pressure on Israel.
And my fear is that people are going to forget why Israel is going into Gaza. I understand that they have to strategize. They can't just go, respond by the next morning, go in and eradicate everything. But we've seen, you and I have seen this for years now, that, like you say, if we wait too long, then Israel's going to go in and the headlines are not going to be, Israel is eradicating, is neutralizing Hamas. It's going to be Israel is killing the Palestinians, and that's all you're going to see on the and the result. And it boggles my mind. Why is there so much rooting? The world is rooting for Hamas. Why is the world? It's like, I'm sorry. I've studied the Holocaust. I had members of my family die in the Holocaust. It is like right now somebody basically saying, "Go Hitler! This is great. Go for it. You're a savior of humanity." Why would people? Why?
Well, you're one of the world experts on anti-Semitism, Olivier, and you know what that is. And I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was about 14, 15 years ago, when Ron Dermer was at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., he briefed us one day. He said, look, the anti-Semitic root in Europe has gone underground, but it never died, and it will resurface. And you certainly can relate to that. So what's happening now is we're seeing that anti-Semitic root resurface. And unfortunately, a lot of our media, despite the fact there are many Jewish members of the media, that anti-Semitic, when you look at BBC, CNN, New York Times, to mention a few, they're anti-Semitic. They're against Israel. And what's happening the last few days, they're coming out saying, the only solution now is the two-state plan. That's what we need to do. We need to get back to the peace table. We need to stop this war. And the way to stop the war is to fulfill the two-state vision, which we know that's not the answer.
It's never going to work. I mean, they don't want two states. They want one state without Jews. Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea. That means no Jews. That's what it means.
That's right.
But I think what some of the news. I mean, from most of what I watch on the everyday news is Newsmax, because it's the closest to honest news at this point. But they still miss and you and I don't. But they still miss the spiritual aspect of this battle of good and evil. The rebirth of anti-Semitism, as I've documented and spoken about for the last 23 years now, there's a spiritual component. When I define anti-Semitism, I always say anti-Semitism is the hatred of Israel and the satanic and irrational hatred of Israel and the Jewish people. Satanic and irrational. And people don't really understand that this hatred comes from Satan, from the enemy, who wants Israel destroyed, because he knows that at the end, when the Jewish people call on Yeshua, on Jesus, saying Baruch haba b'Shem Adonai, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, that's when Jesus comes back. And that's what sets the stage for the final campaign of Armageddon, and then the eradicating of the enemies of Israel, and the putting a stop to Satan's career. And Bill, you and I know that Satan is not looking forward to his retirement. So he wants to stop that. He wants to keep it from happening, and he's behind anti-Semitism. I have probably 500 books on my shelf on the Holocaust and anti-Semitism, and I've said this before. Not one of them speaks of the spiritual aspect of anti-Semitism. They give great historical records. They have taught me a lot, and they're invaluable scholarly work, no question. But they don't understand the spiritual connection. And I think if you don't understand the spiritual connection of anti-Semitism, you won't be able to understand anti-Semitism. And if you don't understand anti-Semitism, you won't be able to fight it properly.
Absolutely. I remember when George W. Bush was in office, and he was talking about a battle between good and evil. And Javier Solana, one of the EU reps at that time, says, well, we don't look at the world in that context. We look at it of the plight of people, the lack of economic opportunities, and things like that. Depravity. He never spoke of. He was totally uncomfortable with George W. talking about that there is good and evil in this world, and that's unfortunately part of what we see quite prevalent in the European mindset.
Yeah, I just saw. I don't know if you saw it. I just saw a video. It was about a half an hour long by Caroline Glick. She was just talking about the battle between good and evil and morality. It was excellent. It was
She's
excellent.
great.
Yeah, and really what you're looking at two different ideologies. The West really values life, and the other side, the Islamic world, they worship death. And there's a disconnect. We're not even speaking the same language. So it's a very difficult battle. Another question I had for you is, what are your thoughts on the speech, this like 6 minute, not very long speech by Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General? Was it yesterday when he said that?
Day before yesterday, yeah.
Before yesterday, when he said that basically he spent a few seconds talking about pointing the finger at Hamas, and then the rest of his speech was on trying to find some moral equivalence or reason to basically throw Israel under the bus. Nothing new for the UN. I mean, the UN has been an enemy of Israel for decades now. But I've heard from several people that they were calling for his resignation. How do you feel about that?
I agree. It's absurd, totally absurd. But yeah, as we know, Olivier, a majority of the resolutions in the UN, chastising resolutions, are against Israel. Also, for them to give the president of Iran, who calls for the elimination of the great Satan and the little Satan, and the wiping out of Zionism in the state of Israel, any opportunity to speak is an abomination in itself. There is no reason that these people should be given any time or any opportunity to spill their hatred, especially against Israel and even the United States at the United Nations. That's uncalled for. And again, it has a great impact on the significance of the United Nations, as well as some of the scathing comments of the Muslim countries in the Middle East about Israel as well. I mean, the United Nations approved a Jewish state in 1948. They backed it and supported it. But as we know, the next day, 5 Arab countries attacked Israel in the War of Independence. So again, the United Nations giving a platform to this kind of vocal and evil conservation or communications must be over. It must be stopped. There's no excuse for it.
I don't think he'll resign, but because I mean, it's just
no.
You'll stay there. Do you think there is? Do you think there are Hamas or Hezbollah operatives in the United States right now that came through our southern borders? Do you think we're at risk of another attack like 9/11 soon?
Well, that's a good question, Olivier. I think, that's been coming up a little bit more lately. That has been a concern, but I tell you what, it's been a concern since 9/11. We heard about it the first 5 or 6 months after 9/11 in 2001. We've heard about it on and off throughout the last 20 some years. There's concern about some of the people on the terror watch list have been arrested that have come in, and those that have not come in, that have not been stopped, that are inside our country. I remember when I lived in Northern Virginia, there's this 250,000. I understand there's 250,000 Muslims and Arabs in the Washington D.C. area, and a lot of there are some very decent people from the Middle East. I worked with a couple of them at the White House when I was a White House correspondent. They're very good people. I enjoyed them, and we had a great relationship, and we also had a great relationship with the Jewish members of the White House press corps, the Jewish, me, the Christian, and the Arabs. We got along great, and even a couple of Iranian journalists. So very peaceful people. But as you know, Olivier, all it takes is a few, and I think there's definitely some cell groups around America. They're waiting for that international call for jihad. Hamas was kind of saying something a couple of weeks ago, kind of calling for it. Nothing happened. At this point, our FBI, Justice Department is aware of this. They're watching it. I don't sense anything soon, but that could change. But I think down the road, at some point, where our major cities have a national day of terror is very plausible, very possible, and I think our cities are more prepared than in the past. But that's probably inevitable. Just not sure when that would happen, but very, very plausible.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but with the open borders the way we have them right now, it's very scary. I have one more question, really, which before we wrap this up. I was not going to ask you. I thought this has nothing to do with anything, but then again, it has a lot to do with a lot, because that would change probably quite a few things. So what's your opinion on this? Do you think Trump is coming back?
Yeah, he sure wants to come back, and I think in some ways he needs to come back because of all these cases, federal and also state cases. I think as a president, you can pardon yourself or members of your family. In federal cases, I don't know about state cases, but I think in many ways, yeah, I think he'll continue for various reasons.
What I mean more than anything is, do you think, I know he's going to run, I know he's going probably to end up being the candidate, but do you think, Bill, I have lost faith in our electoral system.
Yeah.
Do you think we can have a balanced, honest election in America in 2024?
I'm hoping so, and I know some Republicans in Texas and other places are doing everything they can to improve the electoral system. I mean, to the extent in the 2022 in Texas, there was many poll watchers, and there was teams of attorneys on call waiting for, if they saw any impropriety, that they would pick that phone up and call those attorneys immediately, and they get on it. It was a good system. It wasn't perfect. So I think more and more states are doing what they can to ensure the plausibility and the fairness of the election. Of course, it gets down to the voting machines. And we hear that there are backdoors to certain voting machines. I won't go there, but unfortunately, Dominion takes on anybody that says anything against them, and they were able to get $750 billion or $750 million out of Fox News. So I guess a long answer to your question, a lot's being done on the precinct level, which is important. But again, we just have to make sure that our machines are as fair and honest as possible, whatever that takes. Back right after Trump got elected, there were some 4 or 5 voting machine experts that said any machine can be hacked. And this was, the Democrats brought them in, and there were experts that said any machine can be hacked. A few of them said that. So we just, that's the concern for you, Olivier, me, and others, that we just have a fair and equitable, just election. And we have to do everything we can to ensure that to the best of our abilities.
Right. And at the end of the day, and I know it almost sounds cliche, but we have to believe it. At the end of the day, God is still in control. God is still.
That's the bottom line.
And whatever happens, we know as believers, we know that what's happening in the world right now is out of control. From a human perspective, it's going down in a very fast down spiral to implosion, self-destruction. But we know that nothing is escaping God's attention. Nothing is surprising him. He's in control of everything. He was in control of everything when Israel asked for a king, and he gave him Saul. He allotted for Saul to be their king. So he's in control of everything, and that's what I want to finish with. For anybody watching right now, if you're watching because you wanted to get an update on what's going on in the world in Israel, I'm glad you're watching. But at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, what is my relationship with the God of the universe? Do you know that if you die tonight, you'd go to heaven? So the bottom line is this: Yeshua, Jesus, died for your sins, and no matter what happens in the world, he is in control, and he's coming back. And you want to be on the good side of God. When we're born into eternal life. We have to pick the destination. We either do nothing and we end up in the lake of fire for eternity, or we choose to follow Yeshua, Jesus, and accept his gift of free salvation to us, and then we spend eternity in the presence of God. So if you've watched this program and you're not yet a child of God, you simply pray that he would accept you in his family by understanding that there's nothing you can do on your own, and you accept the free gift of salvation. And that's all you have to do. And that's probably more than understanding anything that we've discussed. That's the most important decision that you can make today. So, Bill, final thoughts for
You're absolutely right. We're living in the most important time in biblical history. God is sovereign. This is not a surprise. From Genesis to Revelation, that's his word. 27% of our Bible is Bible prophecy. And we literally are living in the final days according to the scriptures. And as you said, Olivier, our hope, the world's hope, the Israelis, the Palestinians, and the world community, our only hope is salvation through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And I pray.
And for us, it's exciting. While we're watching, it's exciting.
Absolutely.
We know the end of the story, and we know we're part of that story. But for those who don't know, it's scary. The whole world is scared, and they're without hope. We have the hope of Yeshua, the hope of salvation.
Amen.
So Bill, just before we close the program here, tell us again, how can people get a hold of you?
Our website is watch.org, watch.org, posting news that's biblically relevant 365 days a year.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You have been a blessing. This was wonderful. You have so much information that I don't have, and I always appreciate your angle and how you connect the dots. So I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks at the conference that we're going to be doing together at Brendan Holthouse Church in Bakersfield, and then I'm sure you're probably going to be also at the pre-trib.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the annual kind of a run of what's going on domestically and internationally. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the one that lasts 4.5 hours in the evening, right?
Yeah, it's about three. One other thing I might add, Olivier, our books, Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequence of Dividing Israel, and also Revealed, Obama's Legacy, are also available through our website. So thanks for mentioning that today.
Very good. Absolutely. Bill, I'll have you again soon. Thank you so much for being such a good friend. God bless you. And to all of you, shalom until next time.